one scenario that commonly happens is, all right, so you do have this partner that is not necessarily on board with changing their, health and fitness. And I think that that's okay. But I think that one, the biggest thing is that if your partner is that way, then they can still support you, but not like have that kind of like judging, every time you're saying like, hey, I want to go to the gym, or I want to like weigh this out, if I'm tracking my macros, they give you like this big eye roll. I think that's like, kind of a big red flag. But on the other hand, I think if you have a partner that's not really wanting to necessarily change, I think a big important thing is like, don't try to force them to change. If you try to force them to change, I think it's going to backfire and be met with a lot of resistance. It can be as like seen as nagging or criticism and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing I hear from people is like, why won't my partner like get healthier? Because I'm getting healthier. And I think that like, if you are the one that's doing that work, then yeah, I mean, lead by example. And a lot of times I've worked with clients that, their partner wasn't on board at first, but then they saw them getting in shape and fit. And they were like, it gave them a lot more confidence to say like, oh, like I can actually do this. Cause maybe they just didn't think that they could change. And they actually start getting on board and whether they work with me or not, or work with their own coach, I've had so many clients like, oh yeah, my husband, he's like lost like 20 pounds because he's just doing what I'm doing too. And it's like, that can come along with it. So, I think don't try to force it, but lead by example.
Yeah, well, it's like, you're exactly right. I feel like that's such a common question is it's like, hey, the person in my life that I care about does want to make change, or they want to lose weight. They want to start being more active, more healthy, more whatever. How can I support them? And you nailed it. It's like, I think that when we know somebody also sets a goal, it can be easy to start unintentionally judging them or making comments, right? Because it's like, let's pretend that person is like, hey, I want to start dieting. I'm going to start XYZ. And then you see them not, doing things that aren't necessarily in alignment. It would be easy to bring that up, to bring it to their attention. And it can like, what a toxic thing that can like permeate into your relationship is like, you're coming with the best intentions, but it ends up being received as being judged, being nagged at, being criticized. And it's like everybody moves along at different rates on their journey, for health and fitness, right? And so we can't assume that a person is ready, willing, and able to make changes exactly in the way or exactly the same speed that we might be willing to make changes. So it's like you nailed that 100%. Um, and it's just gotta come internally, like you said too. It's like you can't want it for them. You can invite them. Hey, I'm going to the gym at 3 p.m. That's what time I'm gonna be doing them. Keep inviting them. But then again, it's like you gotta just send the invite and then like fucking cut it. We don't get to keep going. Because it is, people have to want to change, but they have to also be willing and ready and able to make a change. And that's two totally different camps. Like we think about doing something and then the next step becomes, okay, we start making those changes. So you just can't take it personally for sure.
Have you ever run into anybody that like a client or a friend, where they're worried or concerned that their partner was getting in shape and more attractive, and they were really worried about their partner like finding someone else? Has that ever come across your table?
I mean, I experienced it personally for sure. Because,
Oh
like I
wow.
said, it's well, imagine, right? It's like I feel like, especially in CrossFit gyms, it's very common for people more so than maybe at like a gold gym or something. It's like people tend to be pretty freaking, about it and, very into it. And so everybody's super shredded, six pack. And so same thing. It's like, well, if you're suddenly aboard the train, you aspire for that too. So then you kind of go down the road to being that thing. So I definitely was in the receiving end of, especially as I started CrossFit coaching, I was at the gym all day long. I would be surrounded by, shirtless dudes working out. And so there was definitely that whole like the toxic jealousy, the oh, like, are you cheating on me? You're at the gym all the time. So I would say on the client end for sure, because it's like when somebody is making changes, it can also indirectly make you feel bad, right? So it's like, let's say your best friend starts working out, they start getting healthier, they start seeing, body composition changes and stuff like that. How common is it for people in your life to start making negative remarks or, like I said, like criticizing and judging? And what it actually is from that whole like it's an internal thing for them, and you are indirectly making them feel bad about themselves. And so them, they start making comments and remarks because it's coming from a place of insecurity because you're making them feel bad.
Yeah, no, I had actually I've had a client that experienced that. She was like she went out with some she had like a girls' weekend, and her friends were giving her a lot of shit for like not drinking or not eating some of the same foods. And I was, and what they were saying, I was trying to explain to my client. I was like, that's coming from probably a place of insecurity because they were overweight and she's made a lot of change and they could see that. And then they probably got really reminded about like the things that are maybe they're not happy with. And I was like, you can't take that personally. Like that is not something about you. It's just they're seeing it and then they're choosing to now project it outside towards you. And I think something too that maybe just going back to that communication is just like if you have friends or, partners or whatever, just like communicating that like, hey, like our relationship, just because I'm changing things about myself, nothing has to change about like our relationship. Like I'm still going to be your friend. I'm still going to be your husband, wife, whatever. Like we're still good. I just want to make these changes. I would love for you to come along with me and like do this stuff or support me. But like nothing's going to change. And I think just maybe even communicating that they're safe, that will take a lot of that like judgmental criticism or just like backhand, offhand comments out of the picture. And they'll be more on board to just like really help you.
The biggest thing too is a lot of times people don't realize that they are making those remarks. Or, like I
Mhm.
said, it's just like the littlest things can just twist and, be really hurtful or be very, unsupportive. And so it's like, again, back to the boundaries thing. It's like if your partner, your family or whatever isn't showing up the way you want them to, you have to hold them accountable and you have to call that out. I know with my family personally, it was like Thanksgiving when I was, we'll say, 18, 19 years old, like, freshman in college. And so somebody in my family kind of made an offhand comment about like, oh, I don't know why you can't just like eat XYZ food and like just enjoy the family and be normal. And my Enneagram 8 katana energy. It
Katana.
was like, it did. I had to learn to advocate for myself of like,
Mhm.
I like pulled, my family member off to the side and just like straight up, like, this is how it is, right? Of like, hey, I want to start by saying that your comment was really not okay, like very inappropriate to say to somebody that you love and should be supportive of. But hey, here's what I'm personally experiencing and dealing with. These are the things I'm trying to navigate, and this is how I'm struggling. So here's ways of how you can support me. And it was just, very no bullshit. And like, this family member straight up just like froze deer in headlights. And then you could also see like, oh shit, like, okay, I was just making a comment, but I didn't expect for it to be a whole situation, right? But since then, we've never had to have those conversations again because it was just like, woo, it was like afterwards, I was like sweating a little and whatever. But again, it's just like people aren't mind readers. And the people that love us are also typically the people that have like the most likelihood to hurt us because they interact with us the most and they do care about us. And so it is, it's like it just also hurts a little more when it's from a loved one versus if it's, a stranger or somebody on Instagram, whatever. But truly, it's like people just don't know. And sometimes people, make comments that aren't appropriate to the people that they love.